Welcome all. As Grinnellians, it's our shared goal to make our world a better place. Nowhere is this effort more important than in selecting the president of our college. Over the past 8 months, I've been proud to help lead a collective effort to put that promise into practice through our presidential search. Our announcement today is the culmination of multiple in-depth interviews with an exceptionally qualified pool of candidates. It's important to note that the strength of our candidate pool, even in the midst of this pandemic, validates Grinnell's prominent reputation in higher education and something we should be proud of. Early in our search, our work shifted to virtual meetings, but the process remained rigorous and comprehensive. I've had the honor of serving on 3 presidential searches, doing 2 during my 14 years as a trustee, and I can assure you this one was as thorough and competitive as the others. The search committee was representative of our many constituencies and was extraordinary in its commitment of time and thoughtful work. I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to my co-chair and fellow trustee, George Moose, and to the rest of the committee, including trustees Shelley Floyd, Julie Gosling, John Kispert, Jean Meyerson, Ed Sen, Joel Spiegel, and Matthew Welch, our faculty members Todd Armstrong, Caleb Elfenbein, Carla Erickson, Lakeisha Johnson, and Vida Predis, and Staff Council President Erica Jack, past Alumni Council President Brian Haynes Chung, and Class of 20 graduate and former Student Government Association President Regina Logan. The committee utilized 10 criteria in evaluating each candidate, all of which were representative of what our college needs to thrive. These criteria include a president who embraces the importance of shared governance processes and one who has the ability to represent a classic liberal arts education while supporting the voices of our students, faculty, staff, and alumni. As our candidate assessments proceeded, there was a growing conviction that the new president would need to continue the work of building a strong community in order to accomplish the other important tasks ahead. This is a momentous decision for our college, and I am incredibly grateful and proud of the search committee's diligent efforts to find an extraordinary leader to serve as our 14th president.
Over the past 8 months, my trustee colleagues and I have waited with great anticipation as the Presidential Search Committee spent literally hundreds of hours on an extensive and rigorous national search to identify the 14th president of Grinnell College. The appointment of a president is the single most important responsibility of a board of trustees, and although I've had nearly half a century of professional experience in higher education, this is without question one of the most exciting and meaningful initiatives in which I've been involved. I am very pleased to announce that the board has enthusiastically and unanimously elected Ann F. Harris as the 14th president of Grinnell College. On behalf of the entire board, I want to express our profound appreciation to trustees Trish Anderson and George Moose, who chaired the search committee, and to all of the other trustees, faculty, staff, and student and alumni representatives whose efforts have yielded such a spectacular result. And we could not have had better partners in the search than John Isaacson and his team at Isaacson Miller. Ann Harris is, without question, precisely the right president for Grinnell College at this time in our history. She is a scholar, a teacher, a leader, and a builder. She forms relationships effortlessly, approaches conversations with genuine interest and acknowledgement, and is consistently guided by the values of excellence, diversity, and social responsibility. Ann is passionately committed to a campus community that is welcoming, supportive, and inclusive for all students, faculty, and staff. She's an engaging and compelling speaker and an equally passionate and effective listener. My board colleagues and I have worked closely with Ann as she served as vice president and dean of the college, particularly in the last 4 months as we confronted the challenges of the COVID-19 crisis. And she has powerfully demonstrated to the board her ability to lead and her commitment to inclusive, thoughtful decision-making. She's dealt gracefully and decisively with hard issues, answered difficult questions truthfully, and could often be heard articulating before a meeting, "I wonder what I'm going to learn today." Anne's vision for the role of liberal arts education, and for Grinnell College in particular on the national landscape, is powerful and infectious. She believes that liberally educated graduates are essential to the health of our democracy, recognizing Grinnell as a place where we can experience and investigate, where we can deliberate and discern, and where we can put our values, knowledge, and commitment together for the greater good. Following Renard Kington's remarkable tenure at Grinnell, Anne now has an incredible legacy to build upon, helping Grinnell further enrich its place as among the very best liberal arts colleges in the nation. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, we are thrilled to welcome Anne as our next president, and it is now my great pleasure to introduce the 14th president of Grinnell College, Anne Harris.
I believe there are touchstone moments for all of us that truly change our lives. For me, that moment happened in Herrick Chapel this spring, when I realized that my love for Grinnell College could become its stewardship as your next president. It was then, when we made the difficult but necessary decision to close the campus because of COVID-19, 7 weeks before the end of the semester, that I knew that I was in the presence of a community that understood and treasured its shared experience of living and learning together in all its complexity and meaning. It was then that I realized that I wanted to dedicate myself and my energies to this community, to this college, and to you. I came to Grinnell to learn, believing, as many of you do, that knowledge in community leads to action in society that improves human experience. When I arrived in 2019 as your dean of the college, I was captivated by what was taking place in classrooms, on campus, and in many, many communities. I often describe the dynamic of the college as that of an entity in a perpetual state of becoming, in which ideas, relationships, and ventures are always in formation, and where critical thinking and collaborations create personal and communal transformation. There is a tangible magic that happens here. I've watched faculty, staff, and students discover and make meaning, visited with alumni who care so very much in their connections to this place, and felt honored to work with a board of trustees who have an advocacy for this campus and community that demonstrates the goodwill and humanity of people who love Grinnell deeply. My scholarship and teaching in the art and history of the Middle Ages taught me that no work of art was built by a single person, and that every work of art comes into being over time. Think of the mosaic that comes together piece by piece to form a greater whole. A Grinnell experience and education are transformative over time in a similar way. And this is a place where we believe knowledge and community must be pursued both for its own sake and for the well-being of individuals and society. Far from being an isolated pocket of intellect and exchange, our campus is permeable to ideas, social movements, and change. In the past months, when our communities and society have been tested in so many ways, we have worked creatively and collaboratively through challenges to prioritize public health and safety, to assure educational continuity, and to make sure that people could be cared for in a way that is holistically supportive. And distance or no distance, these are principles that I will continue to prioritize. In my role as president, I intend to dedicate myself to facilitating conversations about the social responsibilities we hold as Grinnellians to change this world for the better. I have long held that critique is care, and that if you reach out to me with your passions and frustrations, it's because the issues that drive them matter, and I promise to listen. I will work to create trust through discovery and conversation and change. As president, I am committed to sustaining this institution as a place where all are welcome and a sense of belonging prevails and endures. I will remain aware of my identity in furthering the anti-racist work that must be done to address racial injustices. Our work as a college will always be to study, understand, and act so that communities and societies thrive for all their constituents, local and global, for generations to come. I am deeply honored to follow President Raynard Kington, whose broad vision secured a platform for Grinnell College in the national conversation of higher education. Raynard's investment in academic disciplines, in innovation, and his attention to history have been remarkable for Grinnell. We can pursue the momentum that has been set in motion, learning from the history of the college, building ambitious futures, and building on the foundations and practices that bring people together for good and for better. Moving forward, Grinnell's students, faculty, staff, and alumni can focus on creating genuine relationships of comprehension through conversation, imagination, inclusion, vulnerability, and empathy. These are 5 principles we have come to know on campus as the Thrive Principles, and you will hear more about them in the coming months as we foster our communal will to be authentic to each other for all that we hold in trust in our campus and global community. The enduring value of a liberal arts education is to learn in community and to act in partnership, not just for ourselves, but for the world in which we live. It is to encourage generosity and rigor, and to grow in ways that deepen empathy and understanding as these strengthen resolve and action. I want to thank you for this opportunity to serve you, to learn with you and from you, and to walk with you as we move forward in community into Grinnell's possible futures. Join me, and let's get to our meaningful work.
It was an honor to serve as the student representative on the Presidential Search Committee. And on behalf of the student body, I am thrilled to help announce Ann Harris as the college's next president. There were really 2 distinct parts to the presidential search process. Before we could start looking for the right candidate, we had to discover and define what our college needs now and into the future. From the committee's collective knowledge and reflection, we developed an initial list of ideas. And we also consulted with students and student representatives to ensure that students were at the heart of this search. By the time the actual search for candidates began, the committee had developed a candidate profile that responded very thoughtfully to what students would like to see in Grinnell's next president. At the forefront was the fact that Grinnell needs a president who is driven by building relationships, building community, and who will be willing to face challenges and challenging conversations head on. We also, and this is something I brought us back to all the time, we were looking for someone who understood Grinnell's tradition of student self-governance. Grinnell needed to appoint a president who would clarify and actualize students' role in the college's shared governance model. And after dozens of interviews, I am delighted to say that we found that person in Ann. From the moment I read Ann's cover letter, where she discussed the relevance of self-governance and spoke about how it's actually codified in Grinnell's history, I was intrigued. But I began to trust Ann's commitment to self-governance as we spoke further, because she spoke often about her commitment to democracy. She told us about her belief that education plays a critical role in democracy, both as an institution, but also as a training ground for democratic engagement. At one point, Ann characterized democracy as fussy, which I loved, because that inherent messiness is also at the heart of and part of the beauty of self-governance. Like democracy, self-governance is not a perfect system. It's a practice. It's a way of engaging with each other. It's a very human and sometimes messy practice, and I know that Ann understands that. Ann is also curious about challenges. She has the very special ability to allow multiple truths to coexist and acknowledge them all with care. She has a genuine interest in other people and in other people's ideas. And she runs towards difficult conversations because, as she told the committee, where people are expressing hurt, something important is at stake. She leads without ego, and she always centers students in her work. Though I've graduated and my time at Grinnell is done, and I won't have the opportunity to work closely with Ann in her new role, I'm so very excited for students to get to know and collaborate with her. And I can say with no hesitation that I am so excited to see where Grinnell goes during Anne's leadership.
I first met Ann Harris when I chaired the advisory committee that helped President Kington in our search for a new dean of the college. So I've already had the opportunity, as you will, to get to know Ann, to learn from her, and to further introduce her to our community. Ann's first year at the college was not an easy one. Very early on, she was pushed into an accelerated level of responsiveness and responsibility and faced with difficult decisions and circumstances, few of which could have been anticipated. And then the pandemic struck. Even before Ann was named acting president, at the onset of the pandemic, she led us in the massive undertaking of sending students home and pivoting to an online environment in our teaching and advising. She helped empower our various campus constituencies to come together to face this unprecedented challenge, and Grinnell quickly became a leader in our response. And I didn't just observe her leadership. I watched how the rest of the room responded. It was clear to me again and again how masterfully Ann stepped into her role as dean of the college and then as leader during the crisis. Everyone was reassured by her leadership. She approached every challenge and every crisis in ways that were consistently principled, deliberative, and respectful. And I must admit that on more than one occasion, I said to her, "Thank you for continuing to demonstrate that you were the best choice to become our dean." Ann exhibited leadership and a sense of empathy that validated for me and the entire campus community that she had come to develop a profound understanding of Grinnell College and its unique culture. She embraces and champions the value of a liberal arts education, always with inclusivity and diversity in the forefront of her thinking. And the genuine, creative, and even joyful way in which she responds to hard questions is nothing short of presidential. All of these qualities made me hopeful that when we made our recommendation to the Board of Trustees for Ann to become our next president, that they approved, and I'm delighted that they did. Many other candidates spoke eloquently and had compelling qualifications. There are many ways that Ann stood out to me. Her willingness to take on any challenge as a learning opportunity, her core principle that critique is care, and the way she sincerely welcomes difficult conversations that yield a deeper understanding of others' perspectives. These are among the many characteristics that impressed me and the search committee as well. And after a thorough and thoughtful search process, Ann Harris clearly emerged as the best person for the job. Congratulations, Ann. I look forward to your continued leadership and partnership as you become Grinnell College's 14th president.
It was an honor to be part of such a dedicated committee in the search for Grinnell's 14th president. I can say that our work was done in true Grinnell fashion. It grew organically, it prioritized a sense of common purpose and a clear understanding of the task at hand. And it sought to ensure that everyone on the committee felt valued and respected. We had an outstanding field of candidates that included sitting college presidents, vice presidents, provosts, and deans. In the end, it was Ann who prevailed. There were instances when it was suggested that we shortcut the process. Ann was, of course, already on campus. She had already been named acting president. Wouldn't it be easier, some said, to just make her appointment permanent? Yes, we said it would be easier. And no, we absolutely would not disrespect the process or the outstanding candidates who would put themselves forward. Doing so would have been a disservice to the college and to whoever was eventually chosen. We were given the great gift of an outstanding search committee. Everyone remained fully engaged throughout the process, despite our physical separation and the many other demands on their time. Committee members were able to see beyond the perspectives of the constituencies they nominally represented to our collective responsibility to the college and its mission. Even though it was a time of great distress on the college, and even though there was a great pressure on the committee to produce a timely result, we knew we could not rush our deliberations. If I had to single out one voice that was consistently thoughtful, measured, and valued, it would be that of Regina Logan, the outgoing president of the Student Government Association. During our many hours of interviews with Ann, she manifested a deep belief in the transformational power of liberal arts education and in Grinnell's capacity to be a leader and exemplar. Her approach to teaching and learning is holistic and enabling. She understands the centrality of the residential learning experience at Grinnell, as well as the fulfillment that can happen through academics. Anne's leadership role in the college's response to the COVID-19 crisis demonstrated her capacity to steward the college through even the most difficult and daunting challenges. It also revealed her ability to sustain and build on the enormous progress made under President Kington. Above all, Anne has a special gift of being able to inspire others, a gift that will enable her to bring us together as a community to achieve our shared aspirations for the college. As is true of most Grinnellians, I credit my Grinnell education with enabling me to achieve so much of what I have accomplished in my life. As the college moves into this next chapter in its history, I would invite my fellow Grinnellians, alumni, faculty, staff, parents, and students to join in reflecting on what this college means to us and to reaffirm our commitment to doing all we can to ensure that it will be here to serve future generations of Grinnell students. We have in Anne Harris a leader with the values and the vision to get us there, and someone who will welcome our partnership in making our community even stronger. Thank you, President Harris, for accepting the challenge and the honor of being Grinnell's 14th president.